So when did it become a reality? I mean, when did it become more real for you? Like, hey, this is something not only that I think that I'll be good at, but I'm going to go be good at it.
I think it became real my first sparring day.
Okay.
Because my very first sparring day, I think coach wanted to see if I had the stones to really do it. Um, so my first rounds were
Was this at Genesis or
this is
Grudge
at,
at
this
the
is our
time?
grudge at the
Okay.
time. My first sparring rounds, granted I'm green as all get out.
I hear Grudge goes
He
hard.
yeah he put he put me with Justin Gaethje the first round. Put me with Pat Barry the second round, and then he put me with Brandon Gertz the third round.
Damn. All
And
heavy hitters, like heavy
yes,
hitters.
yeah, and Brandon pulls no fight. Brandon's in my quarter now too, but
It's a
uh,
powerhouse.
oh yeah, and the lessons that Brandon teach, I just remember. So like Justin and Pat, Justin about kicked my leg off, and Pat was a little bit nicer to me. He still gave me a little bit, but Pat could have just absolutely obliterated me.
Yeah,
But
he's a striking
he's being
animal.
nice. And then but Brandon he put me uh through the ringer. I remember because the only thing I really fell back on is what I knew, and I was just wrestling.
Mm.
And so I dropped down to a single and had both legs around the single, and he cutted me like into outer space like three different times. And after the round is when he tells me, "Oh yeah, don't put both hands around a single leg because you're gonna get blasted." And I was like, "So you told me this? You told me this after the round, but you had to blast me first?" He's like, "You couldn't just shadow." He's like, "Nah." He's like, "I don't believe in that softness." He's like, "Now you'll remember never to put two hands
That's
around the
true.
leg." And
That's
so
true.
I was like, "Okay," but that's when I knew that it was for real and
Huh.
that I was frustrated, but I was like, I freaking love this.
This is the prize fighting business. I'm your host, Daniel Caycedo, and today my interview guest is professional Bellator fighter and undefeated mixed martial artist, Grant Neal. Grant is a prize fighter that trains with the Genesis Fight Team down in Arvada, Colorado, and he stopped by the studio fresh off of his most recent win at Bellator 233 over Benjamin Lugo, a fight in which he dominated for the full 3 rounds. He sat down with me to have a conversation about his scientific approach to training, the team that he's built around himself to help him achieve his goals, and his journey up to this point, including an extensive football and wrestling background. So let's dive into my conversation with prizefighter Grant Neal. All right, Grant, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. It's been fun. It's been a journey.
Good. So, I mean, you're coming off a big win for you. You were just at Bellator 233, same card as Andrew Capel fighting King Mo, and you had an awesome fight. You dominated a full 3 rounds over Jimmy Lugo, and you were able to display your grappling game, your striking game, and just overall looked good. So, I mean, how do you feel about 2 weeks after that fight now?
I feel really good. I didn't take any damage, and my body feels good. I'm just excited to be a part of the Bellator organization, and I'm excited to get back in there. Honestly, it's the fight game is it's fun. There's a lot of just different ups and downs in camps and whatnot, but
Uh,
ultimately getting in there and stepping in the cage is like the most fulfilling thing. So I want to get back in there as soon as possible.
cool, cool. Yeah, it's a feeling that isn't really matched by much else.
Yeah, I've been in quite a few different sports, and nothing compares to stepping into the cage.
Cool. Yeah, and we'll certainly dive into your journey and kind of how you got here. But for this fight, you mentioned before the show you were working with Andrew Capel kind of in the training camp because you guys had, I guess, opposite matchups essentially. You were helping him with the grappling end of things as he was preparing for a wrestler, and he helped you with kind of the lanky striker aspect of things with your game, and it apparently worked out well for both of you. So, kind of, how did you guys meet up, and how did you decide to work together?
So the fight community is very tight knit. Everybody just kind of knows each other and whatnot. And uh, at Genesis and at Elevation, we do quite a bit of like cross training and things like that. And I went in there, and it just so happened that Capel and I were a great matchup for each other to help prepare for our upcoming fights. And I knew Capel from earlier in my career. He used to train quite a bit at Genesis and whatnot. I always looked up to him, just like this guy's a killer. So
Yeah.
I always take a lot from him and his game, and I just wanted to do what I could for him and allow myself to just be a sponge and soak up all the lessons that he can teach me and whatnot.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, he's a veteran at this point in his career, and you're at least relatively on the front end of your pro career. You're 6-0 as an amateur, now 2-0 as a pro, so obviously a great start to mixed martial arts career. And you mentioned also that you have a 6-fight deal with Bellator, so you've got a handful more fights coming up with this promotion. I mean, one of the largest promotions in the world. So, I mean, what does that feel like knowing that in your second fight you're getting to fight on the stage, one of the biggest stages possible, being Bellator?
It's pretty interesting. I just like to keep it even kill. I don't like to think about that too much because I
Sure.
have one goal and one goal only, and that's just to be the best fighter in the world. So whether that's in Bellator or any other organization, whatever's going to take me to that goal is really what I'd like to focus on.
Yeah.
But I also like to enjoy the moment, right? Because too many times in this sport and anything else, it's easy to forget about the journey and the moment and whatnot. So it was pretty nice just being able to take in the moment, take in the crowd, enjoy the moment. But ultimately, I do have my goal, and I am very, very. It's like a heat-seeking missile. I'm locked on. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, yeah, and it clearly shows with your record, and I mean, people speak very highly of you. In the like you mentioned, the MMA community's tight knit, and people have spoken very highly of you even before this Bellator matchup. And then you showed why. You came out and put on a show for the fans, and looked very good doing it. So it's impressive. Who's your head coach?
So my head coach is Jacob Ramos. So Jacob Ramos, he's been with me since the very beginning of my career.
Nice.
So I've really learned quite a bit from him. He's a phenomenal striking coach. He's got many champions through all different ranks and whatnot, from boxing, Muay Thai,
Yeah,
kickboxing, and whatnot to striking. So he's worked with all of the best striking fighters, so to speak, and which I really thought it would be an asset to bring him a part of my team to really help me with the footwork and the boxing and kickboxing and whatnot, and
yeah.
really complement the grappling.
Cool, cool. Do you have a primary grappling coach, or is that just something that you've kind of naturally gravitated towards?
So I do have I grapple with a lot of different people and whatnot. So a lot of former Olympic Training Center guys come in and grapple and
Cool.
whatnot, and like I said, the community is really tight, especially like wrestling and fighting and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I enlisted the help of a lot of those people, and so my mentor is Nate Marquardt.
Nice. It's a
So I
good guy
mean,
to have.
yeah. So Nate, he's real tough on me, but it's really awesome to have him in my corner and to have him as a coach and. Especially on the grappling side, he's so knowledgeable with
Yeah.
both striking and grappling, but he can really tell me, all right, this is a great position for wrestling, but you got to watch out for this in MMA. So
Mm.
there's a lot of that, like give and take, to where I have pretty good knowledge of stuff on the ground, but he can help elevate my game
Yeah.
to the level it needs to be at.
Yeah, and he's very good at blending them together. I mean, he's been successful at the highest level, former Strikeforce champion,
Yeah,
knocked out
Damian Maya.
Damian Maia, but also Tyron Woodley too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
On the
With
cage.
that, what was it? It was like a 40-piece combo. It was like a
Yeah,
Tekken
it was
combo.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
beautiful.
So an
Yeah,
awesome mentor to have,
yeah.
especially one of the biggest names and most successful people on the Colorado scene in general for mixed martial arts. That's great. How did you like, get involved with them?
So circumstances actually in college led me to uh, have the opportunity to pursue fighting, and one of my other mentors, Lauren Landau, he basically brought me into Landau Performance and was like, "Girl, I want you here every day at 8 a.m. and I want you starting to get after it. And he knew that I had taken an interest in fighting and whatnot, from a few of my other football coaches and whatnot. They're kind of like trying to edge me in that
Huh.
direction, and I wasn't pulling the trigger yet. And uh, Lauren, he was like, "Hey, I want to introduce you to Nate." And ever since he introduced me to Nate, and he's just like, "I'll do everything this guy says."
Wow.
He knows exactly what he's talking about, and just
Yeah.
be a sponge. And so Nate got me actually into Grudge at the time,
Cool. Right.
and now Genesis, but and introduced me to Coach Trevor, and Coach Jake. And
Nice.
Jake just really, we really meshed really well. And he understood where I was coming from and my athletic ability, where
Right.
like all that stuff. And so he became my head coach, and Nate just became my mentor. So
Wow.
the rest is history.
That's a great opportunity,
Yes.
especially right at the front end of your career, just getting right into doing it the correct way if you're serious about the pursuit, which it sounds like you were.
Yes, yeah, exactly. The biggest thing for me is if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it all the way, and I'm gonna
Um,
put everything into it. That's just always how I have been,
that's
and I'm gonna pursue everything, all my goals relentlessly.
cool.
And so in the relentless pursuit of my goals and whatnot, I've had a lot of amazing people in my corner to nudge me in that right direction.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So, tell me kind of about what preparation for this fight camp looked like against Jimmy Lugo. I believe he's a jiu-jitsu kind of guy, but generally, I mean, well-rounded fighter, and you were able to shut down everything and impose your game. So, what did fight camp leading into that look like?
Funny thing is, my fight camp leading into this fight was it was almost like a 8 month fight camp, just
Really?
because of all the all the fights that were supposed to happen, and I
Yeah.
had people drop out or back out when I'm all the way ready, and in fight week
Mm.
someone back out. But I always just stayed prepared and whatnot in the camp. And for me, it was just about getting someone to fight,
Yeah.
and getting to that fight week. So we weren't too concerned with um, everything that Jimmy Lugo had, but we were more
Sure.
concerned with what I could do to really gain a level as far as in my striking and
Hmm.
grappling and whatnot, and really understand what I need to work on. So the focus was a lot more on me rather than my opponent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean Jimmy Lugo is phenomenal athlete. He's jiu-jitsu black belt.
Yep.
He's been on the world circuit and
Right.
whatnot in the BJJ community, but um, we just really just kind of worked on shutting down certain things, staying tight, and really just being myself. That was
Yeah.
the biggest focus, is to go in there, impose your will on somebody, and just be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great, and I mean, I think that's something that I've forgotten. But Jimmy Lugo was actually a late replacement for you, even for this card, right?
Yes.
Came in a couple weeks ahead of time, and that was even your prior card that you were supposed to be on. The opponent had to drop out as well. So, like you
Yeah.
said, 8 months of training camp, and just on that grind consistently. But really focusing on you and honing your strengths as opposed to trying to look at what they may be good at and defending it.
Exactly. And the way that Coach Jake puts it is, um, it's just extra time to really hone in the skills. And
Yeah,
it's is the more time that they give me, the worse it's going to be for the opponent on the opposite end. So,
that's right.
so he really kept me focused, and kept my head in the game, because it can be a grind at
Oh
times.
yeah.
But I mean, the way he puts it is like, well, it's just extra time to get ready to beat the next opponent that comes into your lap. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I really had just good people around me, and just
Cool.
like keeping me focused and in it.
Cool. So
Yeah.
what is obviously 8 months is a long time, but maybe if you're like looking at the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks.
Oh yeah, so 6 weeks of training camp. So I have a very strict schedule that I stick
Cool.
to. So I like to do everything. I like to have everything just down pat and laid out. So just a typical week in training camp for me would consist of waking up early in the morning, getting a little breakfast and whatnot, and then going to Landau Performance to start my strength and conditioning from 8 to 10.
Nice. Wow.
So I do an hour of conditioning and then an hour of weight training.
Wow.
And so that's every day. And then
Really
I
cool.
do, then after that, I would go to Genesis up in Arvada and go to my fight team practice. Depending on the day, it would be either sparring or fight team or grappling and whatnot. And then after that, I would go to a gyrostim appointment, which a gyrostim is just helps with cognitive function.
Huh.
So I do that with Dr. McWhirter just to keep my brain active and fit. So so it's basically puts you in a machine that gets you completely off of your axis and tells you how to perceive, react, and respond in while you're moving and off your axis. So it
Wow.
really helps hone in all the skills and cues that you need for fighting, right? And
Wow.
so do that, and then do to integrate it, we do like the Dynavision, but we do it a little bit differently than most people. There's a lot of just different mental cues that Dr. McWhirter incorporates. He talks directly to my head coach, and he'll talk to him about what combos and things that we're working on that week, so we can really hone in that. And
Wow.
there's a lot of science behind a lot of the things that I do, as far as so for example, if a coach sees that I'm having trouble seeing a kick coming from the lower left side, and like I'm getting hit with something from the lower left side, then we really go into gyrostim and Dynavision and work the lower left quadrant to really work that out, so I don't have any blind spots. So
Wow.
we do that, and then after that, I go and either go to a recovery session, either in a cryogenic chamber at Castle Rock CryoCare, or I do a hot yoga session at Summits Yoga.
Nice.
And those ladies there, they're like absolute killers. But
Yeah.
it really helps with my overall flexibility and strength in positions that you actually use quite a bit in fighting.
Yeah.
So yoga was like a huge next step incorporation and preparation for this fight.
That's
And just
great.
really learning how to use my body in different places and whatnot. And then I'd go home and hit the books, study.
Yeah. Because you're also studying for pre-med?
Yeah, so I my ultimate goal is to be a physician as well.
Nice.
So
Cool.
like I said, I pursue my goals relentlessly.
Love
So
it.
whether I'm fighting or whether I'm pursuing an academic goal, I really go all out. So yeah, I still do that and whatnot. And in between there, I have like all my meals and everything
Sure.
set out, and I have some pretty awesome sponsors. I'm sponsored by Untamed Meats, and Untamed Bison, and it's John Howell's company, and it's literally the best bison that you can get. It's basically the Wagyu of bison.
Nice.
So to keep me healthy and whatnot, that's basically what it consists of, and it's really awesome to have all those people surrounding me, great sponsors and whatnot, to allow me to compete at my peak performance every time I step into the cage.
That's an incredible approach. I mean, not only is it a full-time pursuit that you're also balancing with school, but I mean, you're all over Denver, from Castle Rock to Arvada. I mean, that's a lot. But I really like that it's integrative. I mean, what you're doing on an individual basis is very diverse, as far as getting the scientific kind of doctor approach to the cognitive ability, doing the yoga for flexibility and the balance, and then also getting your MMA training, then also doing strength and performance and cardio. But like you spoke to, it's all integrated together. Everybody's talking to each other. Your coach is talking to the doctor. I know Landau integrates with the coaches as well and the teams as well. So it's all working together to get you where you want to be. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And if you see my corner, like sometimes Dr. McWhirter's in my corner, and then
Wow.
a coach from Landau Performance is in the corner. Usually
Cool.
Coach Landau is there,
Nice.
but when Coach Landau can't actually be physically there, he's actually in the back on FaceTime
That's awesome.
helping me out. So everybody that is a part of my team, it's really important that they all communicate and work together, because
Yeah.
sometimes they see things that I don't see, or they can communicate things that I'm not communicating properly to one another. So it's really important to have them all on the same page, and to really allow me to max out my ability every time I get in preparation and getting into the ring.
Yeah, then you just have to put in the work.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the work that's the easy part.
Sure,
It's
sure.
really important. Just for me, I think mentally it's really important to keep that honed in as well. So
I would
we
imagine.
have a lot of just philosophical and religious conversations with Nate and with my coach and whatnot. And so just uh, I can always work hard. I come from a wrestling background, so hard work is it's here nor there.
Just
But
part of it.
yeah, so it's really important to keep your mental game pretty astute.
Yeah, and I would assume, I mean, that would breed its own level of confidence just knowing the team that you have around you. Not only that these guys are specialists in what they do, but they've been successful at the highest level. I mean, Lauren Landau has built his business off the back of, helping people deliver results, whether it's in football or any other sport. So, I mean, you've got this team of experts and people that have been successful in their own right, and now they're kind of coming together to help you be the most successful you can be.
Exactly. It's a beautiful thing. I just want to be a sponge and soak it up and make all of them proud. You
Yeah.
know, it's a lot of the people who've came around me really have believed in me since I was really young and whatnot, and um, they come in as a lot of mentors and father figures, right?
Yeah.
I call Coach Landau Coach Pops,
Cool.
and I really see Nate as a big father type figure, and Coach Jake as an awesome mentor, and so they really all come in together and really they give a lot of their time and their lives and whatnot to help me succeed. So I just want to do my best and repay them in any way possible that I can, and that's going out and performing the best I can.
That's right. It's a beautiful thing when you see it all come together like that too, especially when everybody can work so well and mesh so well together, and your results are the result.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so tell me kind of about how you fit in this food into the day. I mean, you've got your sponsor providing the raw materials at least, but like, are you meal prepping during the week?
Yeah, so I meal prep quite a bit. The biggest thing that I like to do is I like to ground my bison,
Mm-hmm.
just because when you ground the bison, it just makes it a lot easier. But I also have a lot of steaks, a lot of roasts, and things like that. So I have a lot of diversity in my diet.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of spinach because spinach
Nice.
is great for connective tissue, and then a lot of bison, just for the protein content, the fat content that just helps get me going. And
Yeah.
then I do a lot of like shakes. It's
Cool.
funny. I used to do a lot of shakes with like protein and whatnot, but
Right.
for me, I would always feel like a little bit bloated and whatnot,
Yeah.
and after starting to incorporate the untamed bison in my diet and and doing that, I was really able to just kind of get off of all of like the supplements and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I just felt I didn't need it, so I don't take any supplements.
Cool.
I just eat good food, just good whole foods, and that just is really I just really seen a huge help in my game and whatnot,
I
and
bet.
with the shakes and whatnot. Now I actually still do shakes, but they're all whole food. It's all whole food
Cool.
shake. So I took it. I kind of stole a little shake recipe from a fellow fighter. His name's Carrington Banks, but he's out here, and he's a vegetarian. So
Oh, really?
I was a little bit skeptical about his smoothie making ability, but turns out that it really has helped elevate my game and give me the energy I need throughout the morning, and then having those meals prepped and whatnot just in between while I'm on the go is just like been phenomenal.
Yeah. It just
Yeah.
makes it a little bit easier to
Ye-
access all those nutrients.
Exactly, and like if I meal prep at the beginning of the week, I don't really have to worry about the time it takes to prepare food. Think of what you're gonna have to eat like during the week
Yep.
and like all that. This is everything. I have such a tight schedule. I have to have
Right.
everything like down pat and set.
Cool. It's interesting you bring that up because Arut Bogosian, Elevation Fight Team guy, was also on the podcast recently, and he was talking about how he picked up that type of vegetable fruit shake thing, whole food shake from Alistair Overeem as well, and it's changed his diet immensely. And I think it's just it's cool when you see how you can build the diet around your needs and not have to supplement, because really supplements are just trying to recreate what these whole foods are doing for you anyway. So if you can get access to the whole foods and you have the ability to get them and consume them in an efficient manner, I mean, that's the way to go, really.
Exactly, and access is key because
Yeah.
a lot access and knowledge. Like
Yep.
a lot of times we're misinformed about what is healthy for us
Oh, yeah.
and what we need to do and whatnot. So for me, I really like to eat a lot of wild game. So the bison
Mhm.
that I eat is not what you buy from the store.
Sure.
It's wild. It's wild bison.
So
It's
it's gonna be
untouched by
leaner.
human. Yeah, it's just untouched by humans. There's no hormones added to it. It's not factory
Yes.
farmed. These bison, the spring water they drink at the Dismal River Ranch is cleaner than the water that we drink.
Yeah.
So they've never seen humans and whatnot, and
Wow.
it's like it's literally the best meat that I've ever had. And I recently got my blood tested, and they retested it 3 times because they couldn't believe how amazing the
Wow.
results turned out. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see all that come into play, and just to know how I feel right now, and to
Yeah.
whereas when I was playing college football, I just felt like really bloated and whatnot, but it was always
Sure.
like protein shakes this and uh you gotta play next week, so here's an anti-inflammatory. Like
Yeah.
so after changing all that up, changing my diet and changing the way I approach like pain and recovery and things like that, I feel great.
Sounds like you're going more natural. I mean, to a
Oh
certain
yeah.
extent.
Yeah, 100%. I like to keep
Yeah.
everything natural. I mean, even to the soap
Cool.
and body washes and everything
Mm-hmm.
that I use. I have a sponsor named Body Love Vital. She's actually one of
Cool.
my really good friends, and she actually gives me all the essential like soaps and body washes that I need that stop. I would have adverse reactions to like the heavy metals and stuff that they put in
Yeah.
salt and the
Yeah.
unnatural detergents and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I completely went natural even with that, and that alone has helped my game too.
Yeah.
So it's just everything working together. There's a lot of components, a lot of moving parts, but if you get everything working for you, I mean, there's nothing that you can't do.
Yeah, and I love how you've built these sponsors around your needs too. I mean, as far as the bison, the soaps, I mean, these are things that directly impact your ability to train and train at a high level.
Exactly, and I think that it's important for anybody that is in the fight game to really build your sponsors around things that you personally use, because
Mm,
you're going to be the one ultimately promoting these companies and whatnot. And a lot of times, yeah, there you got to get paid, and you have to
sure.
have the dollar sign. You got to pay your rent and whatnot.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you want to structure it to where you can do that by representing companies that you truly believe in. So everybody that sponsors me, from CB Dermaceuticals all the way to Body Love Vital, I use every single one of the companies that sponsor me,
That's awesome.
and I refuse to fall into the trap of having just a sponsorship just to have it for the dollar sign,
Yeah.
because I don't want to represent anything that doesn't represent my core values.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So this fight camp specifically for going into Jimmy Lugo was an 8-month camp. Extensively long camp.
Yeah.
What about like right now? I mean, are you training now? Do you kind of take a break after the fight? What does it look like?
So for me, it's really difficult for me to like take a break.
Yeah.
That's just not the person that I am. So literally the Monday after I fought Jimmy Lugo, I was there at Landau Performance
Nice.
working out and whatnot. And it's funny because it's my coaches have to like kind of beat me back. I'm like, come on, come on, you
Yeah.
need a break, you need
That
a
was a
break. And I'm like,
15-minute fight. It
yeah,
was a
so
3-round affair.
they're like, "Come on, you need a break." I'm like, "Nah, I just, I that's just not who I am." So it's more the coaches is telling me to like, "All right, it's time to rest," or they're structuring the workouts to where they know that I have to come in, so they'll structure a workout that's more of like a recovery based
Okay.
workout instead of like me going right back to it. Because if it was my choice, I'd be lifting heavy and
Sure.
running and doing everything I can. Without taking that rest. But it's really important to give your body time to recover and whatnot. And I just have my workouts and things structured around that instead of completely stopping.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and I basically eat the same things. I think the only thing that is a little bit different. Is I'm a sucker for apple pie, and my girlfriend makes the best homemade apple pie
That's trouble.
with the flaky crust and whatnot. So I'll dabble in that a little bit, but that's about it.
Cool. And I mean, again, you spoke to the benefit of, your sponsors kind of being built around your lifestyle. You don't have to change your diet. Your diet's not different inside or outside of camp, and your sponsor supports that. So
Exactly.
it's good. So again, preparing for this fight, an 8-month process. You're outside of fight camp right now, but you have this multi-fight contract with Bellator. Generally fights are going to be somewhat around the corner. So are you training as intensely now as you were inside of camp, or do you kind of wait for the fight to get a little closer and then start ramping things up again?
So the intensity of training, I always have that goal. I always have a focus, but there's different ways to achieve where you want to go, and so the focus is definitely on being the best in the world. So there's always something that you can do every day, just gain a 0.5% every single day, and you're going to be where you're at, where you want to be. And so that's kind of the focus when I go into preparing into preparation, not knowing the exact date of a fight. So I just always stay ready. I always stay pretty close to weight, not too far off, just in case something short notice falls on in my lap. I can be prepared and really be a professional. Like I really view as though this is a profession, and yes, there's a lot of sacrifice and whatnot, but I just always want to be ready to go. So I'm a fighter that I really value being ready to go. And like I said, if Coach Landau and the other coaches at Landau Performance, Coach Jake, they're all in communication with each other. So if a fight comes in, they're all talking, all right, we need to ramp this up. We need to do this. All right, Grant's looking a little fatigued today. We're going to pull it back here, but we're going to ramp it up here on the back end. Or, hey, show Grant some film of his last fight and then incorporate some combos and things like that we can work on, keep it a little bit chill. Or vice versa, just, hey, we're gonna kill it today. We're gonna get after it, and we're really gonna push it. We're gonna see some red. We're gonna push you to that line and see how far you want to go. Because the thing is, I'm bringing everybody to the depths, and I'm not coming up.
Yeah.
So if I bring you to the depths, you're gonna give up first.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Cool. I love the mentality.
Yeah, you have to have that mentality going into a fight. It's kill or be killed, and
for sure.
I love talking to people outside of the fight. I'm a really easygoing, kind guy, but as soon as that cage door locks, it's a different mentality. And this guy's coming in here to take my head off, take the food off of my table. So there's no way I'm preparing for that every single day.
Right. Yeah. So what does recovery look like? You mentioned that sometimes your coaches, I mean, not sometimes, they are always talking. They're in the loop with each other. They know you very well. They understand you at this point. They know when you're feeling fatigued. So maybe they make it a little less intense or more recovery focused. You mentioned you do yoga as well, which is, I mean, it's good for flexibility, but also recovery. Do you do anything else in addition to that?
So I also do cryo.
Cool.
And then Dr. McWarther, he likes to put me into a hyperbaric chamber just with the oxygen. It's basically a pressurized chamber that pushes oxygen into your mitochondria and promotes healing. I absolutely hate it because I just don't. I don't like being zipped up into a machine, not knowing if I could get out. But he updated his equipment, and he taught me how to get out, so it's not as bad.
Cool.
But I mean, there's 80-year-old people just getting in the chamber, and it's easy for them, and you got a 24-year-old fighter hopping in the chamber freaking out, and so
I'd be with you.
Yeah, so but now I know how to open it, so I'm a little bit better, but
just knowing you can get out.
Yeah. So, but I do a lot of different things for recovery. I won't give all my secrets, but yeah, there's a lot of different things that I like to do for recovery, because to me, recovery is just as important as building.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, the hyperbaric chambers were very popular with a lot of the NFL athletes too. Now they've got, cryo and stuff. There's these more new age techniques that people are kind of utilizing, but hyperbaric chambers have been huge.
Yeah, so I really like that. I just started really incorporating just all these techniques. So cryo, hyperbaric chamber, yoga. Biggest thing for me is sleep.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I get to bed on time. Your biggest recovery process is sleep. So if you can get into a really good sleep cycle and whatnot, and you can really attack the day the next day.
Yeah. So are you pretty strict about, I mean, obviously your schedule throughout the day has to be tight for you to hit all these practices, hit all these trainings, but you're pretty strict about sleeping as well as far as
Yeah,
going to bed at this time, waking up at this time?
I could always be better with
Sure.
with the sleep, but yeah. So it just depends. Like sometimes I just obligation has it, so I'm like up a little bit later studying or
Mm.
whatever, just getting things done. But for the most part, I like to be really strict on making sure I get the hours I need to function at the level that I need to function at the next day.
Nice. So you're 8 fights into your career total, including your amateur career. When did you start fighting?
So the biggest thing for me is I mean I've always been kind of interested in fighting since I
Yeah.
was younger, but wrestling was really the big change in my life that kind of allowed me uh, to get into that like fight game. So wrestling and here in Colorado in high school it was a big change for me because going into high school I had no knowledge of anything
Hmm.
wrestling, and to have like some really great coaches around me to prepare me where I needed to go. That was a really big deal. So I really viewed wrestling as like the pre-fight to my fight career,
Yeah.
and it's because there's thousands of matches, hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands hours of work and whatnot. Learning the mentality of not being soft because I was
Oh,
always
yeah.
a bigger kid, but I mean I was pretty soft when I was younger.
Sure.
To soft to the point where my mom's a killer. Like she's a PT and whatnot, but
Oh, wow.
I always tell people their stories is becoming hard is it's a constant work. No one's born tough.
Yeah.
You gotta really work on it. And I was born big, but I wasn't necessarily the toughest. And I thought I was. I was a football kid, and
Sure.
like, yeah, I'm big on the field and whatnot. But I went to my first high school wrestling practice, realized I wasn't as tough as I thought
It's
I
another
was.
world.
Yeah, and so so I would go home and yeah, you know, I'd cry to my mom and whatnot, and like they're beating me up, and then my mom would just always tell me she said, you know, I don't raise any quitters. So I'd always go back, and I remember vividly my junior year. This is the first year that I won state, and my coach would bring in some guys that were also training at the Olympic Training Center.
Huh.
They'd come in every Wednesday and beat the crap out of me, and I told my mom that I'm not going. I'm not going to wrestling practice, and she goes, "Well, I don't know where you're going because you're not going home because I don't raise any quitters." And so I remember just vividly just crying and being soft and getting beat up and whatnot. But my mom really was like a tough cookie. So she really helped me find that mentality
Yeah.
of just being tough
Yeah.
and getting through it, because the work that I put in there really allowed me to learn what it's like to go through adversity and to
Yes.
prepare me for life
Oh, yeah.
and stuff after fighting, and she knew that. And yeah, I really there's nothing harder than wrestling to
No,
me.
I
Like,
think it creates an
yeah,
incredible foundation, like you said, for life, but
yeah,
also for obviously more directly to martial arts. And it's not something that necessarily gets easier, the wrestling, but you get harder and you get more able to handle it. And at least mentally, oh, I've been in this spot before and I've gotten through it before,
yeah.
so I can do it again.
Exactly. I mean, you ask any fighter, and they'll tell you, "What's the hardest day of the week of your fight week?" Oh, wrestling
Yeah.
practice. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like, wrestling never gets any easier. It's just the way that you approach it. And
Right.
I mean, I used to loathe wrestling. I used
Yeah.
to hate it, but the thing that kept me going was I loved the feeling of getting my hand raised.
And I mean, becoming a state champion in your junior year when starting as a freshman, you're starting in high school in
Yeah.
general. I mean, that's an incredible feat and a testament to your ability to focus on the prize, like you keep speaking to, and grind through it, and set your eyes on the goal and
Mhm.
implement the action items to get there.
Exactly, exactly. I think that's a big key in anything in life. You really want to set your goals, don't sell yourself short, and just really attack it relentlessly. And I feel like uh, it's a failure to yourself if you don't do that, if you sell yourself short. And so
Yeah.
I never want to fail myself. It's one thing, and you know it too. It's one thing to really um, to know it internally, because on the outside you could be doing great to everybody else, but you know when you could have gave a little more, you
Yeah.
know when that, and I never want to have that feeling. I
Yeah.
always want to leave it all out there.
Yeah, and some people are scared of finding that.
Yeah.
Some people, I would argue, they're so scared of the idea of putting themselves out there and pushing themselves so hard, and then realizing failure that they don't even want to try. They don't even want to put themselves in that position where they could fail after trying so hard.
Yeah, but I mean, in life, you're always gonna fail. You're always gonna face adversity, and I mean, I had a lot of adversity. I had to get through just to get to the fight game.
Yeah,
Just like everything that I had to go through with CSU Pueblo, getting back into a schedule and doing that kind of stuff. I really I faced a lot of life and learned a lot of life lessons a lot earlier than a lot of my friends and whatnot. Um,
that's good.
but I think it really prepared me for the moment, and I'm excited to see where this fight game takes me.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
How did you first stumble into the wrestling room?
It was. I thought it was. So the first time I ever encountered wrestling actually was in middle school, and I thought it was like WWE wrestling. And
Yeah.
like my favorite, I loved Booker T, and I loved Rey Mysterio and all those guys, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And I played football too, and so I was like, well, I need another sport to do, so let me see about wrestling. And I always knew the wrestlers were just like tough people
Yeah.
and whatnot. And I always wanted to go and do that, but I didn't realize that I wasn't gonna be slamming people with chairs and whatnot. And I get into my first wrestling practice, I was like, this is a lot different than I thought it was. But I mean, I had a lot of success in middle school. I only knew one move, and it was a headlock. But I mean,
Headlock, hip toss.
yeah, it was a hip toss. Yeah, it was a head and arm hip toss.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I won every single match in middle school, and I didn't learn anything in wrestling. So I'm like, well, I just was stronger than people. I wasn't really tested until I got into high
Hmm.
school, and that's why I consider high school as like my first time really wrestling, because
Yeah.
I didn't learn anything really.
Sure.
I mean, I learned the basics of how a match flows, but
Sure.
I had never been out of the first period in middle school wrestling. I threw everybody in
Wow.
headlocks, so I never felt what it felt like to have my lungs burning and whatnot.
6 minutes of hell, the
Yeah,
hardest
no.
6 minutes of your life,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't feel that until I got to high school, and it was a rude awakening.
Yeah, interesting. So, I mean, but this whole time you're balancing football and wrestling?
Yeah, so football was always just my first love.
Hmm.
Wrestling is a love-hate relationship, because I absolutely love what I got out of it.
Right.
But during the moment, mean, I don't really. I'm skeptical if you're a good wrestler and you say that you absolutely love wrestling. So most good
I
wrestlers.
don't know if I've heard it yet.
Yeah, most good wrestlers. I mean, if you're a beginning wrestler, you might say you love
Sure.
wrestling, but most good wrestlers, you don't really love wrestling, but you love everything that comes from
Oh,
it,
yeah.
and you love what it means to be a wrestler, what it means to be that type of warrior. But yeah, so it was a love-hate relationship, and but I balanced both of them pretty well with
Nice.
football and wrestling.
I mean, I always think about it like after wrestling, everything else seems easy.
It
Like
really does. That's how it is. And I was a little bit since football was my first love. I went to college on a football scholarship, but I had a many offers to wrestle, but I
Cool.
was just like, I'm not gonna,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not doing this in college. So, but then I also had an opportunity to, I earned a scholarship for to wrestle at CSU Pueblo, but I never was able to get to it.
It'd
But
be a lot to do both
yeah,
sports in college.
it'd be a lot, but I was ready for it. But
Yeah,
circumstances just didn't land me there,
sure.
but I did land in fighting, so
Cool.
that was great.
Yeah, so I mean, you wrestle in high school, you win a state championship. What happens after high school? Do you take a break from grappling or that kind of fighting orientation and start
Yeah,
football?
so it was just college football. I mean,
Cool.
college football is a grind.
Oh yeah.
So it's like it's different than high school football. It's like it's it's a 9 to 5,
Yep.
and you're balancing your academics as well. So I didn't go into an easy major, so to speak, but
What was it?
biology with a pre-med emphasis, minor in
Yeah,
chemistry.
that's not easy.
So yeah, it wasn't too easy, but I really enjoyed that challenge, and it really allowed me to push myself and know that I can excel under tremendous amounts of pressure.
Yeah.
And I earned myself a starting job as a freshman. I
Wow.
became a freshman All-American fullback.
Wow.
Won a national championship with CSU Pueblo. So
Sick.
I was on a really good trajectory
Great
with,
experience,
with that, with football, and I loved every moment that I got to spend with my team, and I learned quite a bit from Coach Riston, the head coach there, and really learned a different mentality of being a champion, because
Yeah.
I knew I've always been a champion. And I really think it's a mindset, right? You have to have a champion mindset and a will to get yourself there. And I learned a lot and learned a lot of lessons while I was there.
And learned how to become a champion.
Exactly.
So you become a champion in football. When does it kind of football fade and take the back burner and fighting start to become the preeminent thing again for you?
I just went through a ton at CSU Pueblo, and to where I landed outside of the whole football, everything, all of that kind of stuff, and so I was kind of a little down in the dumps that I wasn't in school and in football anymore, and that's when kind of Coach Landau took the reins, and while I was going through everything I was going through and battling back, uh, Coach Landau really kept me focused on something other than the bad things that
Yeah.
had been betrothed upon me. So it was
Had you met him prior to that?
yeah. So
Okay.
Coach Landau, he's been a mentor to myself and a lot of my buddies since we were probably like 8 years old.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
Cool.
the first time I met Coach Landau is he was running the the conditioning portion at uh, Mr. McCaffrey's camp at
Okay.
McCaffrey's
Yeah.
football camp. So
Cool.
yeah, and ever since then I would go in and train at Coach Landau's in the off season and
Nice.
whatnot, and in football, and he's been a big pivotal part in any success that I've had in athletics.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the recurring theme here is the team that you've been able to build around yourself, but also, I mean, these great foundations you have for everything you do. I mean, working with Landau since you were a boy in regards to football and the success that you were able to find there, but then also, I mean, what that leads into as far as fighting and the wrestling being your foundation to be a strong grappler in fighting. So it seems like not only do you build a good team around yourself consistently, but you have these foundations set up very strongly for what you end up running towards and what you end up pursuing.
Yeah, exactly. It's really been I've really been blessed to have a lot of these people around me, and
Yeah.
not many people have that opportunity. But my ultimate goal in this is to allow people to see that it is possible, and allow people to uh, and hopefully give people that don't necessarily have that ability the opportunity that I had.
Yeah.
And that's it's a big thing for me, and that's why I want to be a physician as well. Is there's a quote that just always has stuck with me by Horace Mann, and he says, be ashamed be ashamed to leave this earth before you score a victory for humanity.
Huh. I love it.
And so whether that's in fighting, or whether that's using my platform in fighting, or becoming the best damn physician I could possibly be, my ultimate goal is to score that victory for humanity,
That's beautiful.
And for the greater glory of God as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I kind of have two questions that are a little different. I guess first of all, when did you decide you wanted to kind of pursue being a physician?
So I wanted to pursue being when I was younger.
Really?
I had a history teacher that actually believed in me, and he'd always like push me and whatnot, and he just was like, "Man, you'd make a good doctor." And I was just like, I always thought about it, and I was like, "That's something I'd want to do." And I was like, "Yeah, that's something I would love to do."
Huh.
I just was always fascinated with the human body, and it's like I loved wood shop, and I want to be an orthopedic surgeon, and an orthopedic
Cool.
surgeon is like, it's like wood shop on the body.
Yeah, it is.
But your bones can heal in certain different ways and whatnot, and it's really cool, uh, and it also allows me to be constantly around the things that I love, as far as in sports.
Yeah.
And yeah, so sports and medicine and orthopedic, they go hand in hand.
Cool. And then did you know that you wanted to fight when you were wrestling, or was wrestling just something that you were doing?
Um, if you asked a few of my mentors, like one of them being Harold Hasselback, he used to play for the Broncos, but he's also my best friend's dad. He'll tell you that he always knew I was going to be a fighter, and he helped push me in that direction. But I wouldn't say that I always thought that. I know I had an affinity towards fighting,
Mhm.
and I knew that I could be good at it.
Mhm.
But he would always tell me, he's like, "You're gonna be a fighter one day." He's like, we'd always watch John Jones fights and whatnot,
Yeah.
and he'd say, "Grant, you would be great at this," and yeah, I would agree with him. But I never really thought that I would actually have the opportunity to pursue it like I am.
Huh. So when did it become a reality? I mean, when did it become more real for you? Like, hey, this is something not only that I think that I'll be good at, but I'm going to go be good at it.
I think it became real my first sparring day.
Okay.
Because my very first sparring day, I think Coach wanted to see if I had the stones to really do it. So my first rounds were.
Was this at Genesis or
This is
Grudge
at,
at the
this is at
time?
Grudge at the
Okay.
time. My first sparring rounds, granted, I'm green as all get out.
I hear Grudge goes hard.
He put he put me with Justin Gaethje the first round. Put me with Pat Barry the second round, and then he put me with Brandon Gertz the third round.
Damn.
And
All heavy hitters, like heavy
yes,
hitters.
yeah, and Brandon pulls no fight. Brandon's in my quarter now too, but
It's a powerhouse.
oh yeah, and the lessons that Brandon teach, I just remember. So like Justin and Pat, Justin about kicked my leg off, and Pat was a little bit nicer to me. He still gave me a little bit, but Pat could have just absolutely obliterated me.
Yeah,
But
he's a striking
he's being
individual.
nice. But Brandon, he put me through the ringer. I remember because the only thing I really fell back on is what I knew, and I was just wrestling.
Mm.
And so I dropped down to a single and had both legs around the single, and he uppercutted me like into outer space like 3 different times. And after the round is when he tells me, "Oh yeah, don't put both hands around a single leg because you're gonna get blasted." And I was like, "So you told me this after the round, but you had to blast me first?" He's like, "You couldn't just shadow?" He's like, "Nah." He's like, I don't believe in that softness." He's like, "Now you'll remember never to put 2 hands
That's
around
true.
the leg." And so
true.
I was like, okay, but that's when I knew that it was for real, and
Huh.
that I was frustrated, but I was like, I freaking love this.
When you're training with these absolute killers, I mean, you're training with guys that are at the highest level. I mean, even at that time, Pat Barry was at the highest level. He's in the UFC.
Yeah.
Eventually fought for glory. So, Brandon Gertz is Bellator right now. Gagey's obviously top 5 in the UFC. So, I mean, these are guys that if you can hang with them, you can hang with anybody.
Yeah, I wasn't really hanging. I was hanging on, but now I don't think that it's a little bit different now.
Sure,
Yeah.
cool. So, when is that? I mean, was that while you're in college? Was that...
So this was right probably 2 weeks after Nate took me under his wing.
Cool.
So.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Nate's introducing you. He's like, "Hey, come to Grudge. Come check
Yes.
it out. Get some rounds in with these guys." And
Exactly.
we'll take care of you.
And here's Coach Jake, because I think
Okay.
I think at that time Nate actually, I think he was fighting in Brazil.
Okay.
At that time, it was time he was fighting in Brazil, and Coach Trevor was out with him.
Trevor Whitman.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Coach Jake was running sparring that day, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then, how long do you train before you take your first amateur fight?
Coach Jake, he actually he let me take it slower. I think I trained for about 8 months.
Oh wow.
Before
Okay. Yeah, that's
before I
pretty
took my
significant.
first amateur fight, because the biggest thing, we didn't want to develop any bad habits.
Smart.
And so we wanted to have a really good base. We didn't want to go in with bad habits. Although we knew I could always rely on my wrestling, we really wanted to start with a good foundation, good footwork. And he said, once we start, this thing's going to take off.
It has. I mean,
And so,
I've just looked at it. Your first fight, I mean, if this is right on Tapology, was 2017, February. So really, I mean, you've been at this just going on 3 years now, and 6 fights as an amateur, 2 fights as a pro. But it also speaks testament again to this great foundation that you had through wrestling, through the many, many years of football, just the understanding of your body, this ability to push yourself, knowing yourself mentally, knowing what you're physically capable of, and then also this incredible team that you've built around you. It's allowed you to just kind of run.
yeah, it really has. I mean, when you can go into something unencumbered and just free, not chained by anything, I just go in there and really have a good foundation and a good guide.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's just my time to be creative and just to be myself, and it makes it easier in a tough sport.
Yeah. So your last amateur fight, you really are only an amateur for like 18 months, 14 months. So your last amateur fight was June, or the end of June 2018. And then it looks like you have like another 8-month break or so until you take your first pro fight. What made you decide that, hey, I'm ready to go pro?
So I had the opportunity to fight for Tough Enough in Las Vegas, and I don't know if you know anything about Tough Enough, but they're a huge amateur promotion. They're an all amateur promotion.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they recruit fighters from all around the world. So if you fight in Tough Enough, you're really gonna be prepared to fight in the pros. I would say my Tough Enough fights were just as hard, if not harder, than my pro fights.
Nice.
I fought some really tough opponents out there, and also in front of some really big crowds. So I think it was my last amateur fight I fought at the Thomas and Mack Arena as their co-main event.
Wow.
And the entire Thomas and Mack Arena was full.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I'm ready for this, and I fought a really solid opponent. Another, I think it was jiu-jitsu brown belt, karate black belt.
Wow.
Was undefeated. So I was like, okay, if this goes the way I need it to go, then I'm ready to go.
So it's up to you though. You made the final decision.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think it should always be up to the fighter on whether they're gonna go in and fight, but with the guidance of a coach. So if I wasn't ready, my coaches would say you're not ready, even though you want to go and fight. But it was really I think Coach Jake said I was probably ready after my first 3 amateur fights, but I really wanted to make sure that I was ready mentally to be able to do that, because I have one goal, and that's to be the best. So if I'm not doing something that's gonna put me into that on that pathway, if I'm just taking a bunch of smoker pro fights,
Yeah.
that's not what I want to do. I see myself somewhere bigger.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think, or I guess, like back up one step, did you have a manager during your amateur days, or do you have one now?
So I had a manager my last two amateur fights. And then he's an awesome guy, and then I just outgrew his capabilities of what he was able to do. But he actually introduced me to my new
Oh, wow,
managers.
cool.
So it really worked out really well, and I'm really excited to be a part of my management company. I'm managed by Janice Sports,
Nice,
which is
nice.
Matt Aptaker and Kyle Stoltz.
Nice.
So they have people the likes of Paige Van Zandt, Austin Vanderford, Brandon Gertz. So there's a lot. They manage like a lot of different type of fighters, different styles of
At the
fighters.
highest level.
Yeah, at the highest level,
Yeah.
and they also are really into um, building the fighter outside of the cage
Nice.
as well. So they want you to perform at the highest level and your best in the cage, but they also want you to go after things that and pursue things that really prepare you for life after fighting as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like being a physician.
Yeah, exactly.
Neat. So, your first pro fight, you won first round by submission. This last fight, you got to kind of show the world your whole skill set. You win all 3 rounds. I mean, is that something that you find value in? I mean, you mentioned kind of in middle school, you never really were tested past that first round. Even in wrestling, you were able to just toss everybody, pin them real quick. But in high school, you faced a little bit more adversity. I mean, you tell me, do you like getting in and getting out quick, or do you value kind of those longer fights here since you are
I mean,
relatively young in your career?
I really feel like it in fighting it's a little bit different. If you have longer fights and you don't take any damage, that's fine. But
Sure.
it's a fight. It's a healthy balance. Like if you could get in there and get out quick, that's what you want to do, right? Get
Yeah.
in there, get your paycheck, get out quick.
Especially when you're getting paid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you always look to finish the fight. And so I'm never like, oh, I'm gonna drag this fight out because I need. No, that I'm always looking to finish the fight at any place it goes. Sometimes you get guys with tough chins and whatnot, but I really believe that in the fight game it can go anybody's way, and I always walk into the cage with that. It only takes one punch,
Yep.
especially at the light heavyweight division. So.
Yep.
I always take it with a grain of salt. It's a blessing to be in there, blessing to get the W. But at any time in the fight, you could be dominating the entire fight. In the last 5 seconds, you get caught with something and you're out. So yeah, I never want to be complacent and try to game the fight. I'm not trying to game the fight. We game the fight after the fight. So as far as the evaluation, now I look back on it like, yeah, that was really good. I got that cage time. But if I didn't get the cage time, I wouldn't be upset about it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So, so moving forward here, you've got a handful more fights on your Bellator contract. Is the goal to get to a championship within that number of fights, or do you view this as kind of a longer term thing where you're kind of building upon what you've done each fight? I mean, how do you envision the career moving forward from here?
I really view it as I'm ready for a championship when
Cool.
I'm ready for it.
Okay.
You know, like it's if I'm ready for it by the next fight, let's go.
Nice.
If I'm not, then let's keep working. But I really have, like I said, I have an awesome team around me, so
Yeah.
we're gonna be ready. We're gonna be ready to go when we're ready. If they call and pull the trigger, I'm the type of person I don't give a damn. I'll fight whoever the hell is in front
So
of me.
you take that opportunity if it comes.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah, but I also know that it's really important to build.
Sure.
Like you said, I've only had 8 fights, but I'm fighting with a lot of killers in the room. Like
Yes.
the likes of Capel, Curtis Blades, got some fighters that are now fighters that were wrestlers at the Olympic Training Center. Got some guys who are All-Americans at Stanford wrestling. So I mean, I have a lot of killers in the room, and by no means do I have an easy room. So I'm prepared. and I'm ready to go. And I feel like I can compete with anybody in the world. But I don't just want to compete; I want to dominate.
That's right. And dominate at 185. Is that where you plan to stay?
I'm actually at light heavyweight.
Light heavyweight. I'm sorry, 205.
Yeah,
so.
205. So 205 is awesome. I absolutely love it. I mean, people that say that see me from the eye test are like, oh, you're short for 205 or whatnot. But I really feel my explosive movement, my speed and quickness, it kind of nullifies that. And I like fighting taller guys because I'm always under them.
Right, especially wrestling. Cormier is a heavyweight, and he's under 6 foot.
Yeah, so it's for me, it's like it's a great thing for me. I'm like, yeah, I'm always under you, and they taller fighters always feel like they have to get lower, right?
Especially in MMA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it would be more substantial in boxing, just because you're just in that, you're in the squared circle, so to speak. So like it's really awesome that I can use that my height as more of an advantage than a disadvantage.
Yeah, so you're comfortable here. You plan to stick it out.
Cool. Oh yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
Be a champion at 205.
Yeah.
John Jones weight class.
You never know. Might drop to 85 too, and go after that as well. Two belts, or even go up to heavyweight. So. Cool. You never know. I feel like I am the strongest light heavyweight out there right now.
Yeah.
I feel like I could hang with anybody at any weight, but I want to be the best.
Yeah. So obviously that's your goal right now: become a champion, world champion, be the best in the world. Yeah. Was that your goal when you first walked into Grudge? I mean, was that the idea? Hey, this is
from day one. I told Coach that my goal is not to be in Bellator. My goal is not to be in the UFC. My goal is to be a champion. My goal is to be the best in the world.
That's awesome.
And he'll tell you, Coach Jake will tell you that, Coach Landau. When I put myself into everything, when I give my all to something, it's no joke. I'm really relentlessly pursuing that.
Yeah, and again, it shows 8-0. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. You can't do any better than that, and you're on the biggest proven stage that you can possibly be on the international level, Bellator.
Yeah, I don't get caught up in that. I mean, 8-0 could have easily been, 4-4 or whatnot. So, I mean, like I said, it only takes one punch. So I never get caught up in any of that records and whatnot. I'm just going out there to perform to the best of my ability and put on a show. Because ultimately, that we're in show business. That's right. And so I have exciting fights. You're going to see fireworks. I'm going out to kill the guy. I'm going out there to knock him out, take his lights out. And I really hope my opponent is doing the same. Because if you're not doing the same, if you don't expect that coming at you, it's going to be a rude awakening.
I love it, man. Yeah. I think you got an awesome team around you. You've done everything necessary to set this foundation up. I'm excited to see where you can take it.
I appreciate that.
So you were going to tell me before the show that your next fight would probably be early 2020.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at, first quarter 2020. Nice. Come on, Bellator, get on that.
Find him a good opponent.
Yes, cool. Yeah, it will be a good opponent. They do a great job matchmaking and whatnot.
They're good about it. Yeah, Scott Coker knows what he's doing.
Yeah, they're good with that, and I'm just excited. I'm excited where I'm gonna go.
Nice. Yeah. So you've got this great foundation set. You've got this great team around you. So if you could give a tip to a fighter that's starting out and aspiring to be in a position where you are, what would be a good tip for a young fighter?
Never be the best fighter in the room. It's really important that you have people around you and coaches around you that don't massage your ego. Every single day is a new struggle, a new test for me. And if you make your preparation the hardest it's ever been, you really push yourself, you're going to get to the fight and you're going to be like, man, this is really easy. I like this. Yeah. And that's how it should be. My coach always says your fight is the reward for all the blood, sweat, and tears that you put in there.
Cool.
So biggest advice was don't be the best fighter in the room.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And so how can people follow you online and follow your career?
So if you want to follow me, I am on Instagram at GrantNeal34. I post a lot of stuff every now and then. It's fun loving. You kind of get a little bit of insight in my day in life every now and then. I don't blow up your line, but yeah. So Instagram is GrantNeal34. I believe my Twitter is just Grant Neal at Grant Neal, and then my Facebook is Grant Neal as well. Yeah, go and follow me. Tag me, DM me. I like to get back to people, so if you have honest questions and whatnot, I'd love to do my best to reach out to the fans. I really love people, and so don't be afraid to talk to me.
I can reinforce that. I DM'd them and it worked out.
Yes.
So yeah, go follow them, check them out, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Prize Fighting Business, and follow us on Instagram. And Grant, man, this was awesome. Thank you very much for coming.
Pleasure doing it.